Hi, everyone, and welcome once again to the TrainAid HQ. My name is Nick, and in today's video, we are looking at the Level 4 IQA qualification. And the purpose of this video is we are going to be looking at Unit 1, which is understanding the principles and practices of internally assuring the quality of assessment. And we are going to be looking at each of the assignment questions on Unit 1. We're going to break our questions down and giving you lots of help and advice on how to structure your assignment. So this is Unit 1 of the IQA course on behalf of TrainAid and Highfield Qualifications. Once again, please do like the video and also subscribe to our YouTube channel to receive the latest updates and alerts from the team. Okay, so first things first, we have our assignment template. Please put your name, the date of your course or the start date, and simply the location as well. So I'm just going to put my name down. And once again, do feel free to change the font as well. I'm going to put today's date in. So if I'm starting the online course, please put the date that you start the assignment. That's absolutely fine. And you can put in online if you're one of our self-paced online learners. Simply put webinar or the classroom and the classroom location as well, such as London, for example. Okay. So we're going to move on to section 1, which is to understand the context and principles of internal quality assurance. And once again, the only textbook and source of information you need is the Angravell's IQA textbook, which is Principles and Practices of Quality Assurance. That is a really great book for answering your assignments. You can, of course, use other textbooks, websites, journals, especially from your own field as well. Do feel free to include any photos, any images to demonstrate your current or future IQA role. So we do like to hear lots of examples as well. That's absolutely fine. You can write in the first or the third person. That is absolutely fine as well. In terms of the word count, most learners write somewhere between 3,000 to 4,000 words. You can write as much detail as you wish. That's absolutely fine. You won't be penalized for writing too much. And just remember, we have the marking team who are very, very supportive, and they'll mark your IQA assignments within 5 working days. So they'll give you lots of feedback. They'll let you know if you passed or you have any corrections as well. We are going to get started. So let's have a look at criteria 1.1, explain the functions of internal quality assurance in learning and development. Okay. So to begin, we would like for you to explain the purpose of an IQA. Okay. And have a look in textbook pages 3 to 4. And that's going to give you some information on what is the role and the purpose of an IQA. So have a look at both of those pages there. So in terms of the IQA relates to someone who's a point of contact for a team of assessors, teachers, or trainers, and they are going to be there as a role model. The IQA is a supportive figure who's essentially going to standardize practice, okay? Where you have a team of teachers, assessors, trainers, there's going to be different teaching styles delivered, different interpretation of standards and criteria. So you, as an IQA, are there to ensure that all teachers and trainers are interpreting policy procedures consistently as well. Okay, colleges, schools, organizations all need an IQA who's going to be a point of contact to seek out advice on the latest standards and guidance as well. An IQA works very closely with an awarding body, Okay, I was an IQA during my college teaching days, and I would work very close with awarding bodies every year to perhaps send off a sample of learners' work that has been marked by a team of teachers. So as an IQA, you will have a range of different responsibilities there. But to start this assignment, we'd like for you to just describe the purpose of an IQA. So in your own words, 3 or 4 lines there. And once again, use textbook pages 3 to 4 to help you. Do feel free to keep in the bullet points, or you can write your answer and delete the bullet points. That is completely up to you, but you can keep the suggested bullet points in there if you wish. Okay. Now, after you have explained the purpose of an IQA, you are now required to explain the 5 functions of an IQA and explain how each applies to your current or future IQA role. Okay. Now, there are 5 main functions of an IQA. Okay, otherwise known as the job role of an IQA. So function number 1 is to monitor assessors, to promote reliability and to promote consistency, identify improvements, and to demonstrate a supportive role to your assessors and trainers. Okay, and what I would like for you to do, okay, with those 5 key functions, I would like for you to explain each one and explain further how it applies to your current or future IQA role. So once again, you can keep the bullet points in here. So to monitor assessors, so as an IQA, of course, you need to monitor every assessor or teacher or trainer, regardless of how experienced they are. The purpose of this is we're making sure that all of our assessors are essentially using the latest standards and criteria provided by, for example, the awarding body. And also it's to promote fairness as well. If everyone is going to be observed and sampled by the IQA, that is going to promote fairness and also team cohesion as well. So to monitor assessors, explain why it is important for an IQA to monitor assessors. How do you currently monitor your assessors, or how will you monitor them in the future? So this could be observing them within their assessing or teaching role. It could also to arrange team standardization meetings as well to review their marking of learner work is another way that you can monitor your assessors. The other key functions I would like for you to discuss is reliability. Why is it important for an IQA to promote reliability within a team of assessors? Consistency as well. Why is it important to promote consistency within a team of assessors? Identify improvements. And we'll all come on to the IQA cycle. But why is it important for an IQA to identify issues and to seek out improvements? As an IQA, for every course that we deliver here at TrainAid, we do seek out ways to improve our service. We listen to learner feedback. We listen to, of course, our customers, and we do seek to improve our service. And also to be a supportive role. So that's an excellent key function. So you can be supportive. You can be obviously approached by your assessors, and you could have a chat to them, or you could be contactable on email as well. You could give some written feedback, such as written feedback within your reports that you give to assessors. And of course, you can be supported by arranging meetings and standardization meetings with your team of trainers as well. So for this first section, we would like for you just to explain the purpose of an IQA, and using textbook pages 3 to 4, explain the 5 functions of an IQA as well. But once again, do feel free to keep those bullet points in if it's going to be useful for you. Okay, We're moving on to criteria 1.2 now. Explain the key concepts and principles of the internal quality assurance of assessment. Okay, so now we are going to move on to concepts, okay, and also principles of an IQA. My advice here is to have a look at textbook pages 14 to 16, where we're going to learn a little bit more about concepts. Okay, so just on page 14, concepts relate to ideas, whereas principles are how the ideas are put into practice. Okay, so there are many different concepts of an IQA, okay, and they are featured on page 14 and 15. So the key concepts is accountability, achievement, assessment strategies, confidentiality, risk factors, evaluation, interim and summative sampling, and also transparency as well. Okay, so very similar to the functions of an IQA, concepts relate to the ideas of an IQA. So these are essentially qualities that a good IQA would have. And to answer this question, what I'd like for you to do is to pick out any 5 of the key concepts, and I would like for you to explain each one briefly, and to explain how each applies to your current or future IQA role. So we are doing lots of examples within this assignment, of course. So for example, I have picked out my 5 key concepts here. Accountability, to analyze achievement data, assessment strategy, confidentiality, and evaluation as well. Okay, so in terms of accountability, who are you accountable for as an IQA? Of course, you're accountable to your learners. You're accountable to your colleagues as well to make sure that their teaching or assessing role is comfortable, it's straightforward, their day-to-day role is easy to follow. We would like to do that as an IQA to make their lives easier. We're also accountable to stakeholders. This could also be accountable to different companies. It could also be that you're accountable to line managers as well. You could also talk here about to analyze achievement data as well. So of course, as an IQA, you need to be mindful of results, okay, to look at perhaps pass rates, percentages, learner opinion polls, learner feedback, and you will have to collate that data as an IQA. And once again, you have to be accountable perhaps to line managers and directors here. So that's just something you need to be mindful of. But what I'd like for you to do, once again, is to pick out any 5, okay, and just to explain each. So typically 3 to 4 lines on each one. And I would like for you to just to give us an idea of how each applies to your current or future IQA role there. Okay. Now, just moving on to the principles of an IQA. So this is still criteria 1.2. We're moving on to principles, and more information is on pages 16 and 17. So principles are based upon the concepts and relate to how the IQA process is put into practice. One important principle is known by the acronym VACSR and should be followed when carrying out internal quality assurance activities. Okay, so especially when you are assessing, we use this principle VACSR in order to make a decision. And it's very, very important for you as an IQA. Of course, you're going to be perhaps observing fellow teachers and assessors. So the same principle does apply. So we would like for you to explain this acronym. So for example, valid, we would like for you to explain that term. So valid, assessor decisions and feedback are relevant to what has been assessed. Authentic, the work has been produced solely by the learner and the assessor has confirmed this. Current, the learner's work is relevant at the time of assessment, as are the assessment records which have been used. Sufficient, the learner's work covers all of the requirements and the assessor records are complete, legible, and accurate. And finally, reliable. The assessment process is consistent across all learners over time and at the required level. Okay, so I'd like for you just to explain each of the key principles, and you can, of course, include an example as well if you would like to explain about your current IQA role. So how do you check valid and authentic decisions within your current IQA role? And we'd also like for you to explain the principles of SMART targets. So SMART targets are providing your assessors with some achievable targets, and SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. So a good hallmark of an IQA is to give direction and support to your assessors. By providing SMART targets, you can ensure that all assessors know what their strengths are and also areas for development. So you can provide them with tangible targets there. So please do explain VACSR just very briefly, and also the concept of SMART and SMART targets. Have a look on page 17 for more information there. Wow, we are making excellent progress here, and we're moving on to criteria 1.3, which is to explain the roles of practitioners involved in the internal and external quality assurance process. Okay, so your main role as an IQA is to carry out essentially a review of your program. Okay, so a good hallmark of an IQA is to constantly check that your program is fit for purpose and that you're using the latest standards and criteria as provided by the awarding body. Now, on pages 9 to 11, we would like for you to review the many list of IQA roles. Okay, there are many bullet pointed as highlighted on pages 9 to 11. Okay, and we would like for you to pick out any 5 roles. Okay, and to explain the role. Okay, so why is the role perhaps important as an IQA, and also how it relates to your current or future practice as well. So I've written 5 just on my assignment template. Okay, these would be my 5 roles. Identifying issues. So of course, if your trainers and assessors are constantly providing you with feedback about a course or qualification, perhaps a question on an assignment or an exam paper that you would like to change the wording of, for example, perhaps some learners are complaining that they don't understand the question. So you can have a look at that issue and make it easier to break down, or you can change that, or you can report those issues to the awarding bodies. Another key role is to monitor assessment decisions. Identify training needs for assessors. So once again, perhaps an annual meeting with each assessor to discuss their strengths and areas for development. So perhaps you can suggest some formal or informal training needs. Standardization is a very, very important role of an IQA. So arranging standardization meetings. This could be to discuss assessment decisions. It could be to discuss your perhaps current procedures and policies, and just to update your assessors with upcoming visit dates by the awarding body, for example, and prepare for external inspections. Okay, so that could be perhaps a visit from Ofsted, Ofqual, for example, and you need to be mindful of that and obviously relay that information to your assessors so they can be aware. But do have a look at textbook pages 9 to 11. There are many, many different roles of an IQA there, and pick out 5 and just explain them. And once again, do include any examples from your current practice as well. Okay, we are doing a very, very good job on our Unit 1 assignments and staying with criteria 1.3. Okay, we are now going to look at the IQA cycle. So do have a look at textbook pages 7 and 8. And we are just going to explain just a bit about this IQA cycle. Excuse me. So the IQA cycle, okay, as you can see here, relates to the monitoring of the teaching, learning, and assessment process. So the IQA cycle has 5 key stages to identify the product or service, planning, the planning stage, activity, the IQA activity stage, decision and feedback, and also evaluation, okay, the evaluation stage as well. Now, as an IQA, I would like for you just to give me some ideas of the product or service that you are going to be monitoring. So I'd like for you just to explain what happens at each of the 5 stages, but to tell me, okay, what you are going to be monitoring within perhaps your current or future IQA role. So explain the product or service or the qualification that you're monitoring, and also perhaps who you are monitoring as well. So whether that's teachers, trainers, or assessors. Stage 2 is the planning stage. So here I'd like for you just to tell me what you are going to do at this stage, such as devising a sample plan, creating an observation report as well, perhaps planning standardization meeting dates. So when are you going to meet with your team of assessors? Activity. This is you, the IQA, carrying out IQA activities such as sampling learners' work, talking to learners who are on a course. It could be observing trainers or assessors within their teaching or assessing role. So you're actually visually seeing how they perform within their teaching or assessing role. And also decision and feedback. So this is to make a judgment as to whether the trainer or assessor has performed satisfactory and made valid and reliable decisions, and also to provide them with developmental feedback here. So of course, you could think about this stage is where are you going to give feedback after an observation? How is feedback provided and how it's stored as well? And finally, evaluation. So this is to carry out a review of the assessment and IQA process to determine what could be improved and done differently. So once again, you could gain feedback from assessors, trainers, and also learners on how you can improve your IQA performance, and also to improve the product or service that you are monitoring there. Okay, so our very next section within the IQA course is to explain the regulations and requirements for internal quality assurance in own area of practice. Now, what I'd like for you to do is to review the textbook pages 11 to 13. And we have a number of different regulations, legislations, and codes of practice there. So legislations are typically laws, okay, passed down by government, by parliament. Regulations are very much called rules, and they are specific to certain industries, okay. and also codes of practice are very much created by an organization. These are often mandatory, okay, such as acceptable use of ICT and a code of conduct. Some are optional as well, okay. Now, what I'd like for you to do for this criteria is to review textbook pages 11 to 13, and we would like for you to select any 4 to 5 different regulations, legislations, or codes of practice. Okay. Now, what we would like for you to do is to explain each one. Okay. So perhaps when they were founded, when they were created, and how each one applies to your current or future IQA role. So I have put 4 down on my template here as a bit of a guidance. So, for example, GDPR, Health and Safety at Work Act, the Equality Act, and COSH as well. Okay. Just as a reminder, you can choose any regulations, legislations, or codes of practice which are not detailed within the textbook and may be personal to your current role as well. So do feel free to include any 4 or 5 which are personal to you. That's absolutely fine to do as well. That's not a problem. Okay. So try to make this section, this criteria, as sort of personal as you can to your own field. That's absolutely fine as well. Okay. So we are going to move on from this criteria. Okay. We are going to now look at criteria 2.1. Okay. Evaluate the importance of planning and preparing internal quality assurance activities. Okay. Now have a read of textbook pages 33 to 34 for this criteria. Okay. And as an IQA, one of your key challenges is to promote familiar systems within the quality assurance team. Okay, so your role as an IQA is to ensure that your teachers, trainers, and trainers is to ensure that they are familiar with certain systems. Okay, so this could be tracking documents. So as an IQA, you will have a range of different documents that you need to monitor, such as a sample plan, tracking sheets. It could be observation plans as well. So for this section, we would like for you to reflect on what documents, what systems you are going to be using. If this is easier for you to identify now, you can, of course, explain these systems clearly to a team of assessors or trainers. So for this section, we would like for you to explain what tracking systems or documents will you use as an IQA? Where will these be stored? Who will have access to them? Familiar systems as well. So as I just mentioned, how will you promote familiar systems with your team of assessors? Will you host standardization meetings to explain how assessors can store paperwork effectively? So it's not just your role as an IQA to store paperwork and reports. You can get your assessors and trainers to do that. But we'd like for you to explain about just how you will promote familiar systems as well. Accuracy, consistency, and fairness. So how will you promote these 3 key terms? So how will you promote accuracy within your IQA role? How will you keep your assessors up to date in terms of key assessment detail changes within your field? How will you promote consistency? You could have a sample plan where every assessor is going to be assessed and their work is going to be sampled. So how are you going to promote these key terms of consistency and fairness within your IQA role? Okay, but once again, do have a look at textbook pages 33 to 35 to help you with that assignment question. Now, for criteria 2.2, we are looking to explain what an internal quality assurance plan should contain. Okay, so this is looking at criteria 2.2. Okay, so within every IQA internal quality assurance plan, there should be three key documents. There should be the observation plan. So that's seeing your teachers or assessors within their live working role. It could be teaching a class, or it could be conducting a one-to-one assessment with a learner. We have a meeting and standardization plan. So a plan showing when you are going to meet with your team of assessors. You could also have an IQA team meeting if there's perhaps two or more IQAs within the same company as you. And we also have a sample plan and tracking sheet as well. Okay, so this is where you're going to review the written feedback of an assessor or trainer as well. So moving away from the physical side, this is all about where you're going to sample their paperwork, such as marking as well. So do have a look at textbook pages 39 to 43, and you'll see a good selection of different observation, meeting, and also we also have the sample plan there as well. So do have a look at those. And to meet this criteria, I would like for you to briefly explain the purpose of each one. So explain the purpose of an observation plan, and also mention as well, where will this be stored within your organization? You could explain how often your assessors or trainers will be observed as well. You can include any photos and images of your three plans. So do feel free to include any photos if you're already taking part within a provisional IQA role, then do feel free to include those photos. So these photos you'll see within the textbook as well. So hopefully that criteria is nice and simple and straightforward. Okay. Now we are just moving on to our next section. We are going to move on to 2.3, summarize the preparations that you'll need to make for internal quality assurance. Okay. To perform your IQA role fully, you need to create obviously a sample plan in order to monitor assessment activities and collect various types of information. But you also need lots of information, okay, in regards to who and what you are going to monitor as well. And do have a look at textbook pages 36 to 37. Okay. Okay. And within your IQA strategy, okay, I would like for you to explain what types of information are you going to gather prior to assessments taking place. Okay, so I'd like for you to think ahead when you are going to be perhaps conducting an observation on your assessor, okay, or trainer. I'd like for you to tell me what information do you gather prior to observing that assessment. Communication is how do you communicate with your assessor prior to perhaps booking in an observation? What information is provided to the assessor? So for this section, we'd like for you to think about when you are perhaps preparing to sample perhaps an assessor, what are all the key considerations and what are you going to do? What information are you going to gather as well? Just a couple of the key points here is admin arrangements. What admin arrangements do you need to consider when booking in an assessment? For example, when arranging to observe an assessor trainer, what arrangements need to be made? And also resources. What resources will be used for your assessments? Is there perhaps a process for resources to be booked, to be booked out or sourced. Okay, so very important when perhaps observing an assessor and sampling their work. For example, of course, you could video record the assessment, and you could also perhaps video record you providing feedback as well. So once again, for this section, do have a look at pages 36 to 37. And we'd like for you just to reflect on all the information gathering aspect of an IQA in preparation for conducting an observation or sampling an assessor or trainer. Okay, so just moving on to criteria 3.1 now, and we are going to evaluate different techniques for sampling evidence of assessment, including use of technology. Okay, so for this criteria, we would like for you to review textbook pages 44 and 45. Okay, and we have a range of different types of methods we as IQAs can use to sample assessors' performances. Okay, there are a range of different techniques we can use and adopt, such as observing the assessor or teacher live, providing verbal Q&As to the assessor after the live observation. You could also speak direct with the learner to seek feedback from the observation. You could also observe a recording of the assessor. This is ideal for distance IQAs. Others sources of sampling techniques could be a witness statement as well. And what we would like for you to do for this criteria is to think about a minimum of 3 different IQA sampling techniques. And we would like for you to complete the grid below. So we have the IQA sampling technique that could be observing the assessor or teacher live. We would like for you to explain 2 different advantages of a live observation, and also the disadvantages or limitations here. So perhaps what are the limitations with observations here? And also to explain how is the technique used within your current or future IQA role as well. So when will you conduct observations? Perhaps discuss the topic of the observation here as well. So how often will they happen? So I'd perhaps pick any 3 from the list, and please complete the grid. I would avoid bullet points for this section. So we would like to see sentences rather than bullet points there. Okay. The next criteria we are looking at is 3.2, explain the appropriate criteria to use for judging quality of the assessment process. Have a read of textbook 95, okay? And for every time that you observe the performance of an assessor, you need to be using some type of criteria or standards in order to make that judgment. Now, within criteria 3.2, we would like for you to explain what standards and criteria that you are using. So perhaps a paragraph here of information on what you are going to be using within your for your future IQA role. Okay. You can include a photo or a screenshot of the criteria or standards that you will use to make a judgment. This could be perhaps a checklist or even an observation form. So for example, just in this picture to demonstrate, you can see one of our first aid managers, Billy, using a checklist there. This is an observation report by the FAIB, which is the first aid industry body. So here at TrainAid, we do deliver first aid courses. Tom is our first aid trainer. He has just performed CPR. Okay, and Billy is using an observation form and the latest standards from the FAIB in order to make a judgment on Tom's CPR performance. So I'd like for you just to apply that to your own role. So do describe what standards that you are going to be using. I would also like for you to include VACSR. Once again, we have discussed this section previously. You can, of course, use the same information here because you will use this key term within your observation of your assessors and trainers. So to answer this question, once again, please provide us with some information on what criteria or standards you are going to be judging your assessors or trainers on as an IQA, but also to recap those key terms of VACSR. Wow, we are well underway with Unit 1. And now we would like for you to move on to the types of feedback and support that you can provide assessors as well. So please do have a look at textbook pages 69 to 72. And we are going to learn all about how to provide effective feedback to your assessors. Okay. So as an IQA, you should provide feedback to your assessors whenever you get the opportunity to do so. This can be in an informal way. It can be perhaps in a formal way as well, but we're just there to be supportive, okay? And bearing in mind, we do work with our assessors or trainers day to day, so we do need to keep that approachable relationship as well. So we need to be constructive with the feedback that we give and not destructive as well. To answer this question, I would like for you, first of all, to explain why is it important for an IQA to provide supportive and constructive feedback to assessors, okay? Of course, if we provide a supportive feedback, they're going to grow as assessors, they're going to become more independent, they're going to become more efficient within their working role, and they're going to be very much current within their latest standards and assessment practice. So if you give them lots and lots of feedback, they're going to hopefully take that on board, and they're going to be aware of how to assess to the latest standards and criteria. So also, we would like for you to explain how you currently or will provide feedback to the assessors you are monitoring within the future as well. So within this section here, we'd like for you to talk about the good factors, the good hallmarks of providing feedback, okay? So as an IQA, feedback should be based on facts, okay, not on opinions, okay? Feedback should also be clear, unbiased, and also it should be unambiguous as well. So it should give them some clear outlines on how they can develop their practice. You should also give assessors or trainers some goals or SMART targets to improve their practice as well. So do have a look once again at textbook pages 69 to 72, and you could see some clear ways on how to provide effective feedback as well. So do feel free to tell me about your style of providing feedback to your learners. Moving on to criteria 4.2, explain standardization requirements in relation to assessments. We would like for you to explain very much the purpose of a standardization meeting. So have a look at textbook page 52. And just remember, as an IQA, you need to plan and manage standardization activities or meetings with your assessors and any other IQAs to promote consistency. Here at TrainAid, we often have standardization meetings over Zoom or Teams. These happen once a month as we deliver different courses nationwide. We do check in with our teachers and trainers to see how they're going, how their courses are being delivered, to discuss learner feedback, and very much we're looking on how we can improve our service. Okay. As an IQA, you will need to maintain standardization meetings. How often these are planned and carried out, it will depend on perhaps the awarding body advice. We perhaps meet once a month, but you could meet once every 3 months, for example. But do regularly check in with your team to make sure that they're using the latest standards and criteria. So to kick off this assignment answer, we would like for you to explain the purpose of standardization meetings. Why are standardization activities important as an IQA? For example, to promote record keeping, to provide the latest standards and criteria to your team, and also to discuss the latest upcoming assessment dates. And finally, what standardization activities do you or will you hold as an IQA? For example, collaborating on schemes of work or lesson plans, comparing how documents have been completed. This could also be looking at learner work, how that's been assessed and graded, for example. So just one or two examples of the standardization activities and topics you will host as an IQA. Just moving on to criteria 4.3 now. So we are looking to explain relevant procedures regarding disputes about quality of assessment. Okay. Now, appeals, disputes, complaints, it does happen. Okay. And you as an IQA just need to be mindful of that. And also, it's learning about how to respond, okay, in an objective way in order to support both the learner and also the assessor as well. So we just need to define what the difference is between an appeal and also a complaint. Do have a look at textbook pages 63 to 64 on this section as well. Okay, so an appeal is usually about an assessment decision, whereas a complaint is more likely to be about a situation or person. Learners who appeal or complain should be able to do so without fear of recrimination. Confidentiality should be maintained where possible to ensure an impartial outcome, and the learner should feel protected throughout the full process. If anyone does make an appeal or complaint, this should not affect the way they are treated, and the outcome should not jeopardize their current or future achievements as well. Okay. Now, what we would like for you to do is to just explain some of the key features of appeals, disputes, and complaints. So the first bullet point there, as we can see, is why is it so important for IQAs to respond to disputes in a timely manner? Okay, so obviously if a dispute or a complaint has happened, it's best to investigate that immediately. Okay, this is important because the experience of what happened is fresh within the learner and also the assessor's minds. Okay, and it also makes you look very forward thinking as an IQA in order to investigate this as soon as possible to resolve the matter. Most disputes and appeals, they can often be resolved with you stepping in and as an IQA. It might be that a learner has misinterpreted a question or a decision, and they just need someone else to step in and just talk them through it and just to explain why the assessor has made that decision. And that is that's a good hallmark of an IQA. Okay. So I would like for you just to talk about how will you respond to any disputes as an IQA. Perhaps you have an appeals procedure as well that you follow, and you can explain that within this assignment question. And what is the process if you can't resolve a dispute or complaint? Okay, so if you as an IQA can't resolve the appeal or dispute, you can, of course, check in with the awarding body, perhaps the EV, who might have a a solution for you. So it's always best to work closely with an ED, an awarding body, who can provide support when appeals and disputes do arise. But you're not on your own here as an IQA, okay? But I recommend a turnaround time of, I think the appeals procedure varies. It can be 7 days, it can be 10 days that a learner does have that time to make an appeal. Okay, so you need to be mindful of that. But in terms of turnaround time, if a learner does make an appeal or a dispute, then do investigate it as soon as possible as well. Okay, so just moving on, section 5 is to evaluate requirements for information management, data protection, and confidentiality in relation to the internal quality assurance of assessment. Now, we'd like for you to just return to your textbooks and to have a read of textbook pages 144 to 145. Okay. And within this section, we are going to be looking at the importance of record keeping. Okay, so records of all communication and activities carried out within a centre should be kept up to date. As an IQA, you should monitor all staff over a period of time and should not assume that experienced staff are always performing adequately. Okay. So for this section, we would like for you to reflect on data management. Okay, we would like for you to explain within your own IQA role, how will you promote information management? Okay, so for example, how will you ensure data protection is being promoted, the storage of assessment decisions, and how will you promote confidentiality of learner work? Furthermore, we would like for you to explain why is information management important as an IQA, and what information will you hold and where it will be stored. This could be information such as awarding organisation reports, assessment decisions, records of communication with centres, and also assessor observation reports as well. So do have a look at textbook pages 144 to 145. We would like for you to reflect on the importance of record keeping and maintaining records, and please give examples of what records that you are going to keep as well. So just on page 145, we have a range of different records that you can reflect on, just to explain what records that you will keep within your current or future IQA role. Moving on to section 6.1, we are going to evaluate legal issues, policies, and procedures relevant to the internal quality assurance of assessment, including those for health and safety and welfare. And within this assignment question, have a look at textbook pages 13 to 14. And we would like for you just to reflect on the different types of codes of practice and policies that you will promote, that you'll uphold within your IQA role. Okay, so we have had a look at obviously codes of practice briefly when we talked about legislations, regulations. Now we're going to go into codes of practice in a little bit more detail as well. So as we know, codes of practice are often created by the organization. So therefore, you as an IQA will have some say into these codes of practice, where they're stored, and you might have to create them. You might have to create a staff handbook, for example, as an IQA. Excuse me. So to answer this question, we would like for you to explain why it is important to promote codes of practice and policies as an IQA. What policies and procedures do you or will you use within your current and future IQA role? So have a look at the different codes of practice there. This could be a conflict of interest policy. It could be lone working, environmental awareness, misconduct policy, duty of care policy, duty to prevent radicalization policy, lone working policy. So perhaps pick out perhaps 2 or 3 policies and reflect briefly on them. And furthermore, describe a minimum of 3 to 4 different codes of practice or policies. For example, equality and diversity, data protection, and safeguarding as well. So perhaps pick out 3 to 4 here. And you could think about 3 or 4 policies that you feel do need to be updated within your organization as well. So this is going to prepare you for your active IQA role as well. So briefly explain those 3 or 4 different policies there. For criteria 6.2, now we are going to be looking at the different ways in which technology can contribute to the internal quality assurance of assessments. Okay, so in other words, we would like for you just to have a look at pages 27 to 29 in the IQA textbook, and we're looking at the role of technology in internal quality assurance. So ICT, it does make our lives as an IQA easier. It makes it easier to sample our assessors, especially if they're working in different locations, for example. You can, of course, check in with assessors via emails and mobile phone WhatsApp groups, for example. And this is going to make it easier for you to perform your IQA role. Now, what I'd like for you to do is to pick out any 4 different technologies which is going to support you within your IQA role. We would like for you to name the technology within the grid, to explain 2 advantages of the technology, 2 disadvantages or limitations, and to explain how you will use this IQA technology within your IQA role as well. So have a look at textbook pages 27 to 29. We have a range of different bullet points there. And just on our template here, we have some just different examples here. So you could write emails, mobile phones, Skype, Zoom or Teams, for example, and also websites as well. So we're just picking out some different technologies and reflecting on the advantages and also limitations of each one, and how you will use this technology within your IQA role. But just a reminder, please do write within sentences and to avoid bullet points here as well. So I would be interested to know, when reading your assignment, of course, what technologies you are going to be using within your role. We are coming to the tail end of our Unit 1 assignment. Thank you for sticking with me, by the way. For criteria 6.3, we have to explain the value of reflective practice and continuing professional development in relation to internal quality assurance. Now, have a look at textbook pages 78 to 80. And I would like for you just have a read of the concept of self-evaluation. So self-evaluation is a good way of continually reflecting upon your own IQA practice to ensure you are carrying out your role effectively. When evaluating your practice, you need to consider how your own behavior has impacted upon others and what you could do to improve as well. Okay, so we would like for you just to start off by saying why self-reflection, self-thought is important as an IQA. So why is it important for you to reflect on your decisions, perhaps how you conducted yourself in a standardization meeting, how you provided verbal feedback to assessors? So every IQA activity, why is it important that we're constantly thinking about how we performed? And also, what methods can you use as an IQA to gain feedback about your IQA role? For example, feedback from assessors, feedback and reports from the EQA, It could be peer observation reports, professional discussions with other IQAs. You could have a meeting with like line managers, appraisals, or you could attend CPD courses as well. So you're thinking about your own self, about how you're performing as an IQA. So how can you gain feedback and also look to the future as well? So how could you improve your practice? And also, how will you save this feedback as an IQA? So of course, gaining feedback from a number of sources is very, very important. And that's showing that you are reflecting on yourself as an IQA and how you can improve. It's a way perhaps you're going to save your feedback. Criteria 6.4 is to evaluate requirements for equality and diversity and where appropriate bilingualism in relation to the internal quality assurance of assessment process. Just on page 12 in the textbook, we have just some information on the Equality Act of 2010. But as an IQA, it's very important that we promote equality and value diversity as well. So we would like our assessment environment, our organization, of course, to promote equality for our learners undertaking our courses, equality for our assessors, but also to promote diversity as well within the assessment process, within your organization as well. So we're there to promote not only the Equality Act, but also to promote fairness as well, fairness for your assessors and learners. But we'd like for you to kick off this assignment answer by explaining the key terms of equality and diversity. Okay, so equality is all about equal opportunities. So every learner has the same opportunity, the same right to experience the same level of support. Okay, and the same opportunity to achieve as well. Diversity, of course, is recognizing that everyone is different. Okay, their background, their culture. We're there to celebrate diversity. And as an IQA, we're there to promote, to uphold, to recognize diversity. Once again, if you have two learners in the same room, you do experience diversity. Everyone is different, and we are thinking about how we can promote equality and diversity within our assessment practice. So we would like for you to think about why is it important to promote equality and diversity within assessing and quality assurance, of course, to promote fairness, to challenge any direct or indirect discrimination as well, and also to make the learner to feel comfortable within the assessment process, to help them to achieve their qualification. Ultimately, we're there to be a supporter. So have a look at textbook pages 12, and we'd like for you to include your own examples of how you have promoted equality and diversity within the assessment process. And do include any examples of how you have had to adapt assessment to support learners, such as arranging reasonable adjustments for assessments to provide extra time to learners, to provide extra support. So this could be arranging for support staff to be perhaps a reader or a scribe to learners, to arrange interpreters, or to print resources, perhaps in a different color if a learner is dyslexic, or providing assignment questions perhaps within a different language as well, to promoting bilingualism. So for this section, we'd like for you to reflect on how to promote equality and diversity within the quality assurance process. Wow, we have come to the end of the Unit 1 assignment walkthrough guides. We do have the textbook reference there. Okay, if you have included any other websites, any other textbooks, please do write them in there. So we do use the Harvard referencing style, but of course, you only need to use that textbook in order to complete this section. The assessor feedback, that's for train aid. That is going to be one of the office marking team. But do feel free to complete the learner reflection. What have you learned from this IQA unit, Unit 1, which is the first unit of the course? So do write down perhaps a paragraph on what you've learned. And also, please sign and date your assignment as well. So we are at the end of our assignment walkthrough guide. Hopefully this has been very, very useful for you. Once again, there's no official word count for Unit 1. Most learners write between 3,000 to 4,000 words, but if you've gone over that, that's absolutely fine. Once again, you won't be penalized for writing too much information. Once again, thank you for watching our video. I hope you appreciate it. Any questions, do get in contact with our team here at TrainAids. Once again, please do like our video, share the video, and also please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you very much for watching, for listening, and we hope to see you on one of our courses. Bye for now.